Okay, I was just looking at the notes here, and we had 16 cases, including 12 new ones and 4 were holdovers. And we found for the complainant 7 times. We found for the respondent 3 times. We turned down jurisdiction 5 times, and we still have 1 in progress. And I've got to get a letter out essentially to the committee on 1 that we've already agreed on the fact that the person has violated the code of ethics. And then I got to type a letter. I think for me being a chair, and I'm outgoing as of next month, that's the hardest part of being the chair, is typing those letters. But it seems like that takes more time than just counting simple votes. Most of the committee is just up or down on jurisdiction, up or down on violations, and then we take a vote on the penalty, get some feedback on what penalty is appropriate, and then take a vote on that. And so I will say, though, that there are some people who don't understand what we do. I had an interesting case at the World Open. Somebody on the TV staff told a parent that I was chair of ethics. He came up to me, he wanted to file an ethics case, and he wanted me to do the investigation. And I said, that's like asking a judge to go looking for fingerprints. It doesn't happen that way. And he thought I was just trying to shirk my responsibility, which I wasn't. But I haven't heard anything unless it's gone through the office. But sometimes it's a lot of people are upset. He was concerned that somebody was distracting his son during his tournament game. So, but that's really what we do, is we don't dig for evidence except what we can see, like on MSA and things like that. It's up to the plaintiff or complainant to find something and then make their case. And then if we accept the case, then the respondent defends themselves and so on. So that's what we really do. Hal, is there anything you want to add?
Just a moment. I just have an email here from Anand. Says he doesn't think he got the Zoom link.
I will resend it to him.
I don't know. So I guess he'll be joining us. He's also a member of the committee. And so, okay. Zanon joining us. We're at 10 right now. Does anybody have any questions for the committee? Nobody?
Harold, it looks like Dwayne does. I'm asking him to unmute.
Okay, go ahead, Dwayne.
Thank you very much, Harold. I didn't want to interrupt the actions and activities that I know are normal and regular for your committee and the meeting, but I did want to get an update, or at least get a sense of what there was, because when I raised the question back in New Jersey, I was kind of expecting to get some type of update from, you know, the committee or whatever. And the question had to do with 3 young people who were withdrawn from national invitationals. And I asked what the status of the case was. I was informed that the ethics committee did not have that case. I was absolutely shocked. I didn't understand why that could possibly be true, considering the cheating that went on, the withdrawal of the 3 young people that had occurred, and there had to be a resolution of some sort, I would expect, And then I was informed that the cases, the three of them, were placed in the hands of the Tournament Direction Committee. At least I think I have that accurate. So I guess I'm kind of trying to find out, was those three cases of those young people involved in national invitationals taken care of by the Ethics Committee? And if they were they referred to the board for any kind of action? I am concerned because certainly the future of those three young persons is at risk when they do happen to cheat, whether it's online or whether it's in person. And in the course of my 38 years at the Denker, we have had one student at over the board tournament who was accused of cheating. The decision was to withdraw him, but I know that that was many, many years ago. My concern now is, if I may kind of put the last note on this, my concern now is that if a young person or any person at a national invitational ends up to have been found to have cheated in some way or whatever, in the future, are they going to be allowed to represent a state, whether it is Maine or Florida or California or whatever? Is that person still eligible 5 years later, 35 years later, when they're a senior, being allowed to enter and represent a state? So I don't know if that summarizes it, but I hope it does. Thank you.
Okay, well, I recall you speaking up at our workshop in New Jersey last year. And I was quite surprised to find out about it at that time because I wasn't the chair at that time. I became chair. I think Noreen Davison was the chair. But I knew nothing of those cases, and I have to say, and I'm not holding anything back from the committee. I'm kind of transparent. I usually get most of my cases from Judy Missner. And when we have an opening in the schedule, I present it to the committee. And I haven't seen anything on this. So if it went to another committee.
Okay, time out.
Yeah.
I got it. Okay, first of all, Dwayne, technically speaking, even if they were prosecuting cases, you have no right to know.
I
Okay,
didn't ask for a result.
you're
I
asking for
asked if the
status.
case
You're
was
asking for
moving.
status. Okay, here's where the cases are right now. First of all, let's get the facts straight. When the three individuals were accused, they were taken out of the tournament, as we all know. Okay, we were in the process. The chief tournament director was in the process of preparing the ethics cases. We were notified that chess.com was pursuing legal action, at which time we were asked to stop while the legal action occurred. The legal actions continued for about a year, and it wasn't until about 3 months ago, Carol, that we finally got cleared up that the legal actions had been either set aside or completed or were no longer ongoing. And at that point in time, the chief tournament director was instructed to go ahead and finish preparing the cases. He turned in the cases to the office, and the office decided that the cases right now, they were just poorly prepared. And that if they went to the ethics committee in the format and with the evidence that they were providing, that they were just going to get flat rejected, because we had already seen how ethics had refused or had not, ruled on cases that, in the opinion of chess.com, quote, were a slam dunk. Okay. And the evidence that was necessary to prove those cases beyond a shadow of a doubt just was not present in the packets. So the packets were sent back to the chief tournament director so that the proper evidence could get included into the packet, so that we could be, much, much more confident that the cases would be able to go through and not just get rejected by ethics because, hey, look, you didn't give us enough evidence here to really make any kind of a decision on. So that's where those cases are now. They're all back in the process of being, re-prepared, if you will, to go before the ethics committee.
Mike, thank you very much for giving me some background information. I'm looking toward the future and trying to understand if a case came forward, how, because right now, I'm certain those young people have probably gotten back into chess and are playing in a variety of tournaments. If they become a state qualifier, let's say for a Denker event or for whatever event, then they would, it seem, have to be accepted as a state representative. I'm very unhappy to believe that might occur. That's why I'm concerned about, what's the future going to bring? Put those three aside for a moment. Where's the status about how the board or anyone else would make a general decision about
If I
the
may,
future?
the committee has had at least one case in the past where this kind of issue was dealt with in future participation. We do have the ability to make recommendations about that. And of course, the board is then free to, accept or reject any such recommendation.
Because what
So the
the
fact-
kinds of discussions that we have had, and Hal and I and Harold have talked to this in some degrees before. It's especially for scholastic age players, to give them or to impose
Yeah.
a penalty that has meaning to them. Something that, is going to be that where it's taking away a valuable right that they might otherwise think I just served my year and I can do the same thing all over again. But it's to take away something that's valuable in their eyes, and as an example, Dwayne, it could be, you're suspended from, your US chess membership is suspended. I'm just making this up. This is all completely hypothetical. Your US chess membership is suspended for a year, but you have lost the right to participate in any US chess national scholastics for a period of years, that kind of thing. So it's, hitting them with something that's meaningful to the, to that particular player at that age, as opposed to, the standard penalty that you might dole out, to someone else. Now that's all clearly for the ethics committee to decide that, but that was the kinds of discussion that we had, was that, look at it from the perspective of a, of what's valuable to that player, and kind of, if you will, hit them where it's going to hurt, so that they do learn something from the incident, other than, it's been a year since the case even got filed, and now 2 years have gone by, as in the case of these three guys. So you impose a 2-year suspension of membership, and then, it was from time served, and it's out the door, and like nothing happened, so that's the point that, that us on the EB were concerned about, is that when you do have young players involved, that you really gotta hold them accountable, not just for what they did, but the prestige of the event at the same time.
One of our
It
concerns
sullies
was the
the
fact-
reputation of the event.
one of our concerns was the fact that these young people ended up having played stronger players who eventually ended up receiving scholarships and prizes. And so a scholarship is a very sacred thing to me.
Mhm.
And when I realized that a player ends up moving up the ranks and gets the equivalent, I don't know, call it a forfeit win, whatever. And and one player received two forfeit wins because there were two students that were involved. That's also a factor, that there are kids who ended up in 3rd, 4th, and 5th place who couldn't contest anything because the player who ended up playing the kid who cheated ended up, naturally receiving a full point or half point, or however the judgment is made. So
We're having
Any concern there?
at the workshop, I mean, at the US Open, you may have noticed on your, on your delegates program that on the back of the
Can I
program.
interrupt for just a moment? I've just got emails from Noreen Davison and Aris Margatus saying they never got the link either.
I sent it out to the whole committee.
Okay.
This is, you accuse them of an ethics violation. The,
Most of the committee's here, so.
so as I was saying, on Wednesday afternoon at the delegates meeting, I mean, at the US Open, we're having a meeting to discuss the sort of, let's take a look back at the last 2 years and what have we learned, or what do we think we have learned procedurally from the standpoint of how cases that are alleged to have involved cheating, how's the process for US Chess handling those, and what can we do going forward to fix those processes so that they're more timely, and at the same time recognize that there's also some issues that still have to be worked involving evidence. Because I can tell you for a fact, because we've talked to them, from the perspective of the vendors that are out there, the vendors' perspective is that US Chess has approved our fair play algorithm. So therefore, if we say somebody's cheated, US Chess should accept it at face value that the player has cheated. Because the evidence that we use to convict, the evidence that we use to identify the player as having cheated, there are significant parts of that evidence are proprietary and will not be released at all. And that's sort of the struggle that we're dealing with, is how do we give enough evidence to ethics or rules or TDCC or whatever committee's got the case, so that from the perspective of those who are adjudicating and assessing the case feel that, yes, this is pretty clear, and we don't have to do such things. So let's play through the games ourselves and figure out whether or not we think the player cheated. Because, I'm not a statistician, so I wouldn't want to play through a game and try to, figure out whether somebody was trying to cheat. But there are people who are professionals that do it. And we also tried that, Carol and I and Pete Karagiannis were making it very clear with the vendors that, look, you need to understand whatever evidence that we get, that evidence has to be able to be seen by the person who's accused, because that's our process. When a complaint is filed, the evidence is provided by the complainant, and the person accused has every right to see that evidence that's being presented. So if there's proprietary information in that evidence and you don't want that evidence to be disclosed, then you're not going to be able to include that evidence, quote, in the evidence. And you got a problem. Now you got a problem. So, that's the kinds of discussions that we're having with the vendors. And that still has a way to go. We think there's a middle ground somewhere, because the vendors want all the ethics people to, be given the complete under the hood tour so that they understand all the data, all the details that are involved. And when they look at evidence, they can say, oh yeah, we know that player's guilty. But that's not, it's violating the principle of, I know more than you know, but I can't tell you what I know. It just violates that principle. So, it's going to be an interesting path ahead about how we help characterize, what constitutes good enough evidence. And as we all know from our experience doing these cases, the higher rated the accused player is, the more evidence you're going to need, most likely, if you don't have video. Whereas, it's the 700 player who just started playing chess 2 months ago, and he's beaten 2300s. Everybody kind of knows, yeah, that one's not too difficult, regardless of how high up off the ground the parents jump up and down claiming that, oh, my son or my daughter is a gifted student. Therefore it's reasonable that she would learn how, or he would learn how to play chess at the master level in 2 weeks. So we've got to figure out where's the, what's the right standard of evidence that's got to come forward that doesn't violate the proprietary concerns that the vendors have for some of the types of data that they provide, because some of the things that they each do are unique, and they not only don't want the public to know it, they don't want their competitors to know it. So
That was one of our problems with one of the online
Yeah.
programs is they'd tell us the person is clicking away, but they wouldn't tell us when. And so it was kind of hard to figure out what's going on.
Yep.
I know that I was one of at least 3 members of this committee who went over some games where the person had clicked away, and they didn't look like computer moves to us. So we had to find them
right.
did not violate the code of ethics.
Because one of the other procedures that we've been talking internally about, and some of you who are like, Tom and Dave and Anand are all international arbiters. And Myron, I'm not sure if you are or not, so I apologize if I'm insulting you in that manner, because I just don't know. That's all. But in a lot of the FIDE tournaments, especially the higher tournaments, in addition to the chief tournament director and like equivalent of the floor chief, they provide an arbiter or a panel of arbiters who are called the fair play arbiters. And we're looking at doing something similar to that, especially if we have any online events, and quite possibly at some of our potentially at some of our over the board events as well, where an arbiter that becomes an arbiter's role is the fair play arbiter, and that person's role really doesn't get activated until an accusation is made, and that person can take the burden away from the chief tournament director, so the chief can focus on the tournament while it is still ongoing, and the fair play director or arbiter can take over, looking at the evidence and then coming up with a recommendation that the chief tournament director can then turn, into a decision that he or she makes. But that's one of the procedural things that I was talking about, that we're looking at how to try to improve things internally, in the future with regard to fair play. And this could be both over the board and definitely online. So.
Okay. All right, I see Aris finally got through. Does anybody have anything else? Oh, Tom, your hand is up. Want to unmute?
Thank you. I don't know if many of you know this or not, but I'm running a FIDE hybrid tournament, so I'm familiar with that. Anyway, they're run on chess.com. There's a arbiter in the room with the players, okay? Usually me. The PGNs are sent to FIDE. I'm sitting there watching them. There's no way that they're cheating. I've had, and this is very strong players, at least a master level. I have had 2 IMs had their accounts closed by chess.com, or let's say an online provider. Then I know we're not cheating. Okay, they're playing very good moves, but they were not cheating. Trying to communicate with some of these online providers is non-existent. It would be nice and I'll bring this up at the workshop, is to be able to have some sort of process where the appeal can be made. So that these players right now, one of them can't play in our FIDE hybrid events, and he's an IM. So hopefully that's something we discuss in a week and a half.
When you said workshop, Tom, this is the ethics workshop. Which workshop were you talking
He's
about?
talking about the fair play discussion that we're going to have in California.
Oh, okay.
I do have a question for the ethics committee. What if there were parts of your own procedures that you feel could be streamlined in some manner, as we look forward to the next, several years? Or are there areas where you would, potentially recommend that kind of thing? I know
Well,
you've kind of made us speed up already because we got online. I mean, we have email capabilities now, so you can cut down the processing time and.
well, we also, this year, we passed a change in which we cut the stage 3 and stage 4 from 30 days down to 14 days each. So that knocked up to 32 days off our procedures. One of the arguments is that we took too long because there were 4 stages. So we did do that. Now, we did have a problem with one case this year where it was sent to some portal and I didn't even know about it. And apparently it had been there for a couple of months and we just recently started the case. But it was a different person sending it than the usual because the usual person was mentioned in the complaint. So that's why we didn't know about it. And hopefully that going forward, we will not have that problem. Hal, is there anything you want to add? Because you've been kind of on top of things also.
Well, gosh, there was a moment ago and I just forgot the point I was going to raise. Give me a minute.
It's the same
here.
problem sometimes.
It's about our procedures. Let me see.
Well, Hal's thinking,
It's-
how's did you remembered it, Hal?
No.
Okay. How have y'all found the ombudsman process to be working? Has that been very successful for you guys?
Well, Anand and Martha were our 2 ombudspersons this year, so I don't know if one of them would like to speak up to it. I'm trying to get them to unmute.
Hi, it's Martha. I'm echoing, I'm in a bathroom because it's very early here. I loved it, and I think it's a process that should absolutely continue. And I think Anand and I were an amazing team because we kind of did the good cop, bad cop, and we were able to get many confessions, and that thereby was able to sort of lessen their sentence. So they learned their lesson and owned what they did. And it was a very, very, very interesting process. Wouldn't you say, Anand? And the parents were very sympathetic.
That's true.
And the parents were the ones that were the hardest to convince because the kids were afraid to announce it in front of their parents. So we did it over Zoom, and I thought it was an amazing process. What did you think, Anand?
Yeah, I think I totally agree with Martha. So we didn't have any recently over the past several months, but initially, I think when for the first part of the year, we did have some online cases, and at least 1 or 2 cases, we had very adamant parents that the negotiation through the phone was through the Zoom was not really helpful at all. They were not admitting that the child was guilty. So other than that, the process of talking to them over the Zoom, having both of us, just not one, is definitely helpful. So I really appreciate it. Having 2 of them, in the conversations with them has helped out in the past. That's my only feedback.
Yeah, I would concur with what they said. We did have one case where there was no admission of guilt to the ombudsman and it went to the regular committee. We had a 9-year-old who was claiming that she went to like 2,600 performance in her first tournament. So, and the committee knows the case, and I took more time than usual to do the decision letter on that to try as many ways as I could explain to the parent, this is why we know that she didn't come up with these moves herself. And one of our members dug up a game where she lost a piece, I think on move 4 or 5. It's the same person who's now playing 2,600. It just doesn't happen like that. And parents didn't want to have that. The little angel told them she didn't cheat and they believed her.
Well, if I may add, though, I think there's a lot of pressure on kids to, perform at a certain level for themselves and for their parents. And so for the kids that were able to confess, it, I think, saved them from quitting chess. I really do, because the one who dug her heels in and couldn't confess, though we know she did violate fair play, I think she's going to quit chess. And I feel the process is a very benevolent, thoughtful, empathetic, sympathetic, whatever you want to say, process to allow that player to tell the parents and tell us in a very open way, and then forgiveness can happen. They can get their sanction, and then they can continue back. Didn't you? I really thought it was amazing, Anand, when the players would actually own it. And these are young, some of them, you know, I think there was one player perhaps under 10 or 9. And I think it helped heal the family and help the parents kind of relax some of the, you know, just the pressure put on the child. And I have to say, Mike Hoffpower was outstanding in guiding us. He would often open the Zoom meeting and then kind of set up another one where Anand and I would take over. I thought the process, it should absolutely continue. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't,
Anand,
there's no plan to
Mike. Anything?
You asking me?
Yeah, I mean, what
Well,
did you think? Because you helped
well,
guide us at
you
the
know,
start.
We have on the executive board, whenever there is a case that involves an ombudsman, the role of the executive board is to introduce the parents to the ombudsman. And then at the same time, explain to the parents, you know, what's going to be happening over the next several weeks or months. And that, what are the consequences and where they have decision points that they can make decisions. You can confess here tonight. You can, you know, think about it, confess later. Or if you feel you didn't do anything wrong, you can, you know, not confess what you think what you didn't do. And we make sure we lay out for them, or at least when I run these things, I make sure I lay out what are the decision points that the parents have in the process, and when is it sort of their move, if you will, in this process this iterative process that occurs. And those meetings usually take about a half hour. And then, you know, and then the ombudsmans take it from there, and the executive board has nothing further to do with the case until it's completed one way or the other.
Okay, Hal, do you remember what it was you were going to say?
I do.
No.
Okay, so given that we have a good number of members of the committee here, I can raise this in person instead of having to write a message at some point. One of the issues with our procedures is, you know, we have this thing that was a suggestion of Mike's to relieve some of the workload on the chair by having case managers. But this year, we have nobody who volunteered to be case manager at all. And it was- except for me. And so Harold and I were kind of tag teaming. And I know that a lot of people on this committee are extremely competent and write very well, but nobody, and I get that a lot of you are full-time directors that are very busy, but it seems like everyone is just terrified of the thought of having to write the draft of a decision letter. And, you know, we just, we can't have that. We need more volunteers to step up to the plate on this, because, you know, this isn't the only issue. What we had a few years ago was a very nice situation where we had a whole bunch of people who were willing to be either case manager or chair. And anyone who served as chair could usually expect 3 years off after that. So then the executive board stole Hayter and Day from us. And unfortunately, Ken Blue passed away. And that left us, you know, a little bit short. So Harold this year is serving as chair, having had 3 years off.
Actually, I think I had 4 years off.
3 years off. Okay.
I served 16, 17, and then I was off from 17 to 21.
He should get another year then consecutive.
Except it's in our procedures that we don't do that.
When my term is up, the happiest person will be my wife, because I use it as a good excuse. I'm too busy. I got to do committee work.
But we're in a situation where, at a minimum, after one more year, we're not going to have anybody who would have had more than a year off to do it. So during this coming year, somebody has to train enough to step up the following term to be chair. Just want to point that out.
Yeah, it is one of those thankless jobs where you do a lot of work and the only compensation is satisfaction that you did a good job. There's no other compensation. And and also the committee's a little bit busier than we used to be. I remember when I was preparing my committee report, the first time I was chair, I looked back and I think I found one committee report where the chair had posted, we did 6 cases, and another one said we did 4 cases. And here we are, we're in the high teens this year. So there are more cases, but I think maybe that'll die down because we have less online chess now. And we got inundated with that at one point with 8 from one complainant. And it took a while to go through those. But we haven't had too many of those since. But they still exist. So I did mention in the committee report this year that we were looking for somebody who would be interested in taking some initiative. And I did recruit somebody who his name will be brought up to the delegates next month. And he said he would, after some training, he would be willing to take on some either case manager or chair. So hopefully he follows through.
Harold, Dave Hayter has his hand up.
Oh, Dave. Yeah, oh, I see Dave and both Daves have their hand up.
I was just going to say, for those of you who fear having to write a case on the US chess ethics methodology, since I've done that numerous times, read the FIDE case decision letters that I also had to do. Then you will be far less scared of having to do the US chess ethics thing by comparison.
David Day.
I was going to just echo Hal's comment and support it and just say that only my second year on the committee, Hal twisted my arm into being the chair. Maybe it was the third year against my will, but my arm was so far behind my back I couldn't feel it. And I'll just say that it's not that bad. You just dive in, you write a draft of the letter. Hal and others will happily fix everything you do wrong in it. And so it just dive in. It's not that bad.
No, I agree with that, David. I wrote a letter this year that had a few factual errors and it quickly got caught. And then I made the changes and then the final product was acceptable. So it's my least favorite portion of the job is writing those letters. And that's why I labored over that one with the 9-year-old whose father couldn't be convinced that his daughter was a cheater. That's why I made it so long. And I think somebody on the EB thought this was very repetitive, but I had my reasons. Anything else? Any new business or anything like that? No questions about anything? So I will not be at the meetings in California. So I don't know, Hal, will you be kind of chair submitting on my behalf the names for the new committee?
Sure, I can do that.
Okay. So. All right. Well,
for what it's worth, FIDE Ethics is going to be voting on their procedures. They've revised theirs, or they're going to, and it's hopefully going to pass at the General Assembly here in a couple weeks. If you want to take a look at that at some point, that was at least a year-long process in revising it, and the FIDE procedures are 36 pages long, I think. So again, those of you who think that the US chess ethics is cumbersome, I got my feet wet in US chess, and then the reward was moving over to the dark side. So if you all want to see how that works, it's posted on, FIDE Ethics.
I should point out that US Chess now has a new disciplinary pathway with this fair play document that was adopted. And that's like 10 or 15 pages long and pretty complex in some places. So,
You're talking about fair play, or you're talking about the safe play?
right, yes, it was
Safe play.
primarily intended for the scholastics, but it's a very long document.
and Hal, I think that's right. You're talking about safe play, not fair play.
Yeah, all right, safe play, that's it.
So, and I know that they had their first case recently, and it was decided, and I was informed. And it's one of those things where there is perhaps some duplication. I don't know that both safe play and ethics need to handle the same case. So I'm satisfied with what happened in safe play. I don't know that ethics needs to look at it. Well, is there anything else? It's been almost, well, about 3/4 of an hour. If there's nothing else, I guess we can adjourn the meeting unless somebody else.
Are
has
there
something.
any, or were there, or are there any of the ADMs that you guys wanted to do like we do in a live workshop on site where you talk about ADMX or ADM? Were there any particular ADMs y'all wanted to talk about?
I didn't bring any forward. I know that.
Well, I'm talking about those that may have come up from other committees or something, or from other, from other folks.
See any offhand that would have affected
Okay.
ethics.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that sort of that part of the workshop typical agenda was addressed, and y'all had looked at it and said, nah, there's really nothing in there that's of any concern to the ethics process or the ethics committee.
Yeah. Okay. If there's no new business, I guess we can adjourn the meeting unless somebody has something else.
Well, I just, as president of the organization, and in a way, and on behalf of the executive board, and in a way, the delegates as well, I just want to thank all of you on the ethics committee for your services. And I know the amount of time that's involved in doing what all of you do. And I hear it from, David and David quite regularly about the amount of time that's really involved in doing what it is that you all do. And we appreciate that, dedication to the organizations, because it is a top example of selfless service.
Okay. Anything new? I guess we can adjourn the meeting, and I know some of you will be in California. I will not. So. All right. I guess we adjourn the meeting then.